Let's talk a little bit about security frameworks. Yasir Ali from Polymer has some ideas that thinks that there's some change needed, and so we talk about that, plus what he's worried about in the coming 2025 back half of the year on this bonus episode of The Business of Tech. Welcome to Comet Backup's Club of No Excuses. Behind every smooth-running business is an everyday IT hero who refused to settle, who didn't give up, because finger-pointing doesn't get a company up and running again. Excuses don't restore data. When everything's on the line, Comet's powerful backup and recovery solutions put you in control. Fast, secure, and easy to use, Comet protects your client's critical data so you're always ready for the unexpected. When disaster strikes, be the hero your business needs. With Comet Backup, you're not just saving the data, you're saving the day. Comet Backup, be the hero. Visit cometbackup.com today to start your free trial. Get $100 free credit when you sign up with the promo code MSP Radio. Because heroes don't wait, they prepare. Well, Yasir, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dave.
I'm excited to talk to you because you've been making some noise with the way you've criticized some security frameworks for being kind of rigid and stale. Give me a little bit of your sense of the way in the current 2025 world, what security frameworks are lacking and what we really need to be looking for.
I think the security frameworks in general are still stuck in a decade ago format of basically allowing a disclaimer or a letter that's signed without a verification of those controls on those controls of whatever you've written in your SOC 2 or your privacy or security frameworks. And there's a disconnect between what companies are certifying, what they're doing to satisfy the framework versus actually providing evidence that those controls are actually working. And that disconnect started off with the GDPR and privacy frameworks that had come in about a decade ago when organizations moved to the cloud. And with AI, obviously, this is becoming a lot more relevant where, trust me, I got you covered type of attitude just is not enough, in my opinion.
Okay, so let's say I go along with the premise so far. How would you propose changing that to enforce some of these standards?
So I'm not saying that organizations are lying or they're not being enforced within their workflows, within their business operations, although that is happening too. But I would like to see some more rubber meeting the road in terms of providing evidence that with either a software-based approach of, hey, what we're saying, customer data, for example, is not being used for training our AI models. Here is evidence for that. These are kind of the metadata in terms of what data got used to train AI. And guess what? There's no customer data in there. Writing a statement or a piece of paper saying we don't do that, I just feel is not enough. You need to provide some more evidence, some more real-time evidence of those controls working, basically.
Okay, now I want to make sure that I'm understanding the problem with it because you transitioned a little bit to AI. Are we specifically talking about generative AI models, like the consumption of, training data from the internet, or are you talking about a different kind of security control?
AI was just an example I was giving in terms of just because it's a hot topic. But in general, when you look at SOC 2 even, which most organizations have to provide evidence for, you can write in a SOC 2 report that I go grab a coffee and I make my organization secure. And that is very legitimate, very valid. Your auditor will say, as long as you agree with that, let's sign off on that. And we are seeing a lot of that hand waving in these SOC 2 reports in terms of how we are satisfying those frameworks for privacy, security perspective. And when you think about more generic privacy controls like GDPR, which have principles around right to access, right to deletion, I'm going to get consent from my customer in terms of what I can do with the information from my customer, how I can use it, where should I be storing it, who should have access to it. Those are just a piece of paper being just signed in most circumstances. Like I would say 90% of the market is there. And we have been making a push with some of the software providers of these auditing frameworks who help auditors uh, uh, provide these frameworks, or at least um, uh, um, integrate these frameworks within organizations, that let's have some more evidence-based approach, that what we are saying is what we're doing, and this is how we are making our infrastructure more secure, or our data more secure, or we are making sure we're doing the level best of securing our customer information.
Okay. Now, it feels like there would be essentially three ways to make this change in the market. The first would be the obvious, well, customers demand it, right? That's the first version. And that, I'll say, I don't see that happening in the market. The second would be creating it as a differentiator, right? We do this, and thus we're better at this to do it. And the third option would be it enforced, that it's a regulatory framework that requires it. The first isn't happening. It's not the customers are asking for this. So how, in that, of those three options, one which isn't working, how would you address this problem?
So we seen this happen more, not so much from a end customer, although the end customer is the poor forgotten constituency here. It's more from a partner, or um, a service provider, or a software providing service to you through a SaaS product, for example. That's where we have seen these things have more teeth, where as a buyer or licensee of a software which I'm using, and I'm storing my data on that software, this could be a security product, this could be a archiving product, whatever it might be. What is that agreement with that counterparty looks like, the third party risk piece? Um, how are you storing this information? What are the controls around that? And then obviously what other third party services you're using over this information that's being stored in your environment, Mr. Partner, Mr. Vendor. And that's kind of where you can ask the hard questions. And that's where we have been doing as with our partners, and our partners have been doing with us, provide us more evidence, and we have gone out of our way to be able to satisfy those requirements.
We'll be right back after this message. Are you and your clients tired of the time-consuming ticket tennis of coordinating meetings and help desk calls? Wouldn't it be better to automate this process with a tool that connects directly to ConnectWise Manage or Autotask? TimeZest offers scheduling automation that gives you complete control of your schedule and eliminates the hassle of calendar ping pong. As the only service designed specifically for MSPs, it integrates into your workflow and makes scheduling appointments easy on you and your clients. Plus, you can try TimeZest for free. Visit timezest.com/MSPradio and use the code MSPradio to get 10% off your first year of TimeZest. And we're back. Okay, I need you to say a little bit more about something you said initially. The customer, the poor, underserved portion of that. I would kind of argue that that's the problem, is if the customer isn't at the center of this, then all the rest doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what a partner or a vendor come together if the customer isn't bought in and if they're not actually either valuing it or willing to pay for it. So help me understand how you put this together when the customer needs isn't driving the way this is engaged.
It's just stepping back when GDPR first came on. There was a lot of protection for the consumers within the EU. Then there was state regulations that had come in Illinois. There was obviously California Privacy Act, CCPA. And these were all designed around the end customer rights to be protected. And there was some effort done by CFPB around getting those protections in order, having some teeth around, hey, the call center needs to answer the questions. And if they're not answering, one of the metric was delay times and how long the call turnarounds are, or how long the requests are being satisfied in, as a metric of how well you're doing your job. we have kind of like forgotten about all that. Like the privacy frameworks are still there, but the momentum which was there probably stopped like 5 years ago is kind of what we saw in the market. And with barring sans what's happened in the last 9 months with the new administration, a lot of the like the White House, the AI bill, and other initiatives around securing information in the age of AI, especially coming from the EU, there is a reawakening or a new opportunity to go back in terms of like looking at the customer at the center of it. And the lot of things are happening. What we're seeing with very prominent SaaS providers like Google, Microsoft, Box, Dropbox, and all that, or even Slack, terms of services are being updated. We're going to use your data for AI, and that's it. Either you use a service or, tough luck, we're using your information. And the market has taken this perspective across the board where big tech has really has been emboldened. I would say like there's no ramification of using your data to train AI models. Or data is not going anywhere. It's very safe. Don't worry about it. And that switch in the market where your data is okay to be trained for AI models has happened. The shift has happened in the last 9 months without anyone's permission. That just happened. And that's where it's just appalling to see all that work that was put in with some of the privacy frameworks and the privacy acts done before from a privacy or security responsibilities have just thrown out the window and be like, okay, we're going to use your data, tough luck. And I feel that we need to kind of come back a little bit to the center here.
Well, so I don't disagree with you, but let me point out that all of the things you talked about, GDPR, California, those are all regulations. That's not the market correcting itself. That's that's regulators coming in and saying, you cannot do these things. And by the way, now you've highlighted it. The reality we live in right now is the American market is saying, we don't care. We're not going to regulate any of this stuff. There's no federal laws. There's no, we're the country with no privacy regulation. Like there is no regulation in the US that covers this. So these companies are saying it. And customers, by the way, clearly look like they're buying this stuff. They're using these products regardless. It's not like anybody has said, no, I'm actually going to say no to these big tech companies because they could. So I'm going to challenge again. What do we do? like the market isn't correcting itself. Customer behavior isn't changing and regulation is backing off. What do we do?
So we have seen the firms like the banks out there, investment banks out there, the JP Morgans of the world have pushed back and have gotten concessions from the end vendors. So the big guys, the big customers in the market are pulling the weight around, hey, can't just go in and use my data. Like banking industry, for example, has been doing that. Anyone short of like the 100 or 500 organizations globally beyond that, I do agree that there's not been enough of a pushback, or they just don't have enough teeth to be able to go and push back Box or Dropbox or Google or Microsoft don't use the data and stuff. With the banks, for example, one of the movement we've seen is private environments being set up my Copilot is going to be private, data is not going to go anywhere, for example. The smaller guys, the onus is on the end guy himself now, is kind of where this is heading towards. It's my data. I need to protect it. I need to make sure what data I'm putting on these third-party providers needs to be as minimal as possible. The rest needs to be carved out into my own environment. And the awareness needs to be for the mid-sized companies, for the smaller enterprises or small mom-and-pop shops. It's kind of on your own now. You need to self-educate yourself in protecting the data. And yes, there is a big piece of the market that might not care, but anyone who cares, responsibility is coming back on your own kind of shoulders now.
I mean, I don't disagree, but I would observe that it feels to me that the only solution to this is actually regulation. But at least in the U.S. market, we're unwilling to do it, and so these companies are going to have their rights to do it. Now, you're focused on some of the things that you can do with managing your data. What are the things that Polymer is working on to try and address the portions that you can?
Yeah, I think the first and foremost is just human behavior. Like in terms of as your employee base, those are probably the biggest data security risk or data privacy risk in your business operations. how they handle the information, who they share it with, what are they doing with this information set collected from your customers, partners. Um, just being in line, runtime. Polymer is a runtime data security platform. So one of the things we do very well is um, natively insert within business operations, critical business operations from your um, chat systems, file storage systems, your CRM systems, and your bucket stores, and so on and so forth, and making sure at least the privacy policy or security policy that's outlined by the organization, that's been followed by employees. If they go outside of that, there's a continuous compliance piece to nudge them into better practices going forward. We've seen nudging at the time of violation reduces repeat offenses by 50% within days, if not more. So just like number one is to reduce just hygiene or increase the hygiene of your environment. Number two is like actual teeth in terms of protecting this information if is it at risk. You share a file containing sensitive data in your OneDrive that has sensitive data. You send it to a new contractor, which is non-whitelisted domain. Hey, let's kind of expire that link automatically, notify the user, hey, resend it through a more secure manner, things like that. So like response, detection and response is the number two piece where actively the machine is trying to reduce the risk of data exposure. And then the third piece is insider threat. If we've seen someone is about to give notice, first thing they do is download a lot of documents locally. So that insider threat piece, someone theft, we've seen some of these things come up with the Coinbase leak, for example. Someone was bribed in a offshore data center, like a call center, and that bribe actually led to this person going and accessing a lot of tickets, and then being able to expose some credentials off of that. So those basic things are kind of what Polymer does very well for his customers.
Now, it feels like as we wrap up our time together, I kind of wanted to get your sense of one big trend. Obviously, I think SaaS is clearly here to stay, and particularly for SMBs, is going to be the way that they experience most AI. If we think about the typical, most small to mid-sized organizations are likely not running their own infrastructure, shouldn't, have outsourced most of that to delivery via external data centers, and likely most of it via SaaS. So what are you seeing in terms of now the acceleration of AI adoption that is coming through those products, and what new exposures you're worried about in the next sort of 6 to 12 months?
No, 100%, Dave. The biggest adoption of AI is happening through embedded services within your existing SaaS stack. Copilot, Gemini, and so on and so forth. This is a part of our earlier conversation where customer doesn't even have a choice. And part of the reason why they're not complaining is just a better service. Like, yes, search might not be as perfect, but at least it gets you started in terms of otherwise you have to go search your email prior. You should take longer. Now it's much faster. And AI can be suggesting some things for you. So that's definitely the biggest theme we're seeing. I expected some of the more sophisticated organizations, technically more sophisticated, to go build their own RAGs and deploy their models within their own data sets. We're seeing less of that. If anything, organizations are trying out a more piecemeal approach. Hey, let's try an agent that's connected into your CRM to ask it questions. Can we combine 2 or 3 different SaaS screens with an agent? So rather than connecting with an API on the back end, which can take forever, you have to get consulting services, for example. I can just use like a RPA type agent, which could just take data from one SaaS screen to another. And that's kind of where we're seeing the biggest productivity gains. And we are helping some organizations in terms of providing at least visibility and guardrails if you're staying within the browser and connecting to different SaaS and moving information around there. And we have a Chrome browser extension that just does just that, to be able to at least have some idea in terms of how agents, the non-human actors, and the human actors are using these tools and AI tools, at least from the front end.
Yasir Ali is the founder and CEO of Polymer, a VC-backed startup launched in 2020 that specializes in no-code data loss prevention and data security posture management across SaaS and AI tools. Polymer protects platforms such as Google Drive, Slack, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, and more, serving clients including Scale AI, Robinhood, CVS Health, RSA, and Edward Jones. Yasir, if people are interested in reaching out and learning more, what's the best way to do so?
They can email me at yali@polymerhq.io, on LinkedIn, Yasir NYC, or our website, polymerhq.io.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Dave. Thanks for having me.
The Business of Tech is written and produced by me, Dave Sobel, under ethics guidelines posted at businessof.tech. If you've enjoyed the show, make sure you've subscribed or followed on your favorite platform. It's free and helps directly. Give us a review too. If you want to support the show, visit patreon.com/MSP and you'll get access to content early. Or buy our Why Do We Care merch at businessof.tech. Have a question you want answered? We take listener questions, send them in, ideally as a voice memo or video to question@mspradio.com. I answer listener questions live on our Wednesday live show on YouTube and LinkedIn. If you've got a comment or a thought on a story, put it in the comments if you're on YouTube, or reach out on LinkedIn if you're listening to the podcast. And if you want to advertise on the show, visit mspradio.com/engage. Once again, thanks for listening, and I will talk to you again on our next episode.
Part of the MSP Radio Network.